Hey everyone, this is a whistling tree frog, or southern brown tree frog. Now these guys are naturalized in New Zealand, originally from southern Australia. Super cool micro tree frogs, awesome animals, awesome pets, really cool. Nocturnal by nature, but they are actually out very active during the day a lot of the time. Now I made an awesome little terrarium for these guys. Now this is the hybrid version of this video. I don't go end to end, I don't go too granular with this, but I just show you some light touches how I make a natural New Zealand made terrarium for these guys. Now this is only suitable for a very short period of time. It's only suitable for froglets. These guys are tiny when they come out of the tadpole phase, the size of a fingernail if not smaller, but a cool little option to keep them in just for a very short time, and then they need to go on a much larger terrarium option, something a lot taller as they're tree frogs. They only need a little small body of water. But this is the start. This is where I started. I have the soil, gravel, charcoal mixture at the bottom. I added some plants from around the garden. Now I've got a pesticide-free garden. Now I know what you guys are thinking. Controversial points is a lot of people, I guess, go against picking anything from the wild, or you'd at least have the quarantine option where you'd let it sit for a couple of weeks before you introduce animals. You know, everyone's different. I've had a lot of experience with both options, and today I've decided to just go with the mix of let's walk along the garden, let's get some plants, and let's start building this and rebuilding this and remaking it, reconstructing it, and creating a cool, awesome environment for these guys. So here I'm walking through the garden and I'm looking at all the textures I can play with. Small plants that can fit perfectly in the terrarium. You want evergreen options, evergreen meaning that it grows all year round. You don't have to worry about it dying off. Moss is a great option as well. It doesn't need direct sunlight. So I'm thinking, you know, I'm getting inspiration from the garden. What plants can I use? How green do I want it to be? What options do I have? So I found some baby clover, and I think clover is a fantastic option when it's really small. It's really easy to pull out and it stays together nice and clumpy, and you can kind of pick it apart and play with it as you start playing with your substrate, your hardscape, and your plants. Once you've got all your plants that you want to add, obviously you want to pick more than you anticipate to put in, because then you have options, right? You're spoiled for choice and you can start getting ready. You're going to mist it so that everything's ready to go. It's easier to prepare everything, and it also makes it a good firm substrate to plant in once you've misted it a little bit. Picking through, I'm pulling out all the long bits of grass, all the bits that I don't need, and I want to keep a nice tidy clump so it's easier to plant. A lot of the stuff you can actually just place gently on top of the soil and it will naturally cling and start growing roots into the soil. You don't actually have to push it in. The clover and some ferns that I placed, I had to push in with my aquascaping toolkit. Once you start planting, you're obviously going to clean the edge of the terrarium. You're going to make a nice clean surface so you can see what you're doing, and most importantly you guys can see what I'm doing. So I'm going to start putting things in. This is probably one of the most enjoyable parts of any terrarium build, is the decorative element, right? The hardscape, the plants, the vegetation. You get to play around, you get to try and make it look cool, you get to try and make it as natural as possible. Really enjoyable element, and it's very therapeutic and very rewarding, especially if you're trying to make an awesome environment for any small critters, frogs, insects, ectotherms, whatever it may be. So the idea with planting all of this and gently putting in parts of the terrarium is I want to give the frogs really different areas of microclimates, and that's why terrariums are a really good option. That's just me walking off looking for some other bits and bobs. But the idea is you're creating microclimates in a small environment. Terrariums hold moisture really well, and a bit of humidity, which is perfect for whistling tree frogs, or tree frogs that need humidity and a lot of moisture. You see with frogs, they need moisture. You don't want them to dry out. They will perish very quickly. They don't like the heat either. So you want to pick plants that are evergreen but also don't rely or require a lot of direct sunlight. Just small exposures. That's the same goes for the frogs. Now the hardscape. Now I wanted some leaf litter, I wanted some bits of bark. I need to create some areas for them to hide, right? Because they need to feel comfortable. They need to find areas that they would in the wild where they'll be able to shelter from predators, from the sun, from all the elements that need to be sheltered from. So I crushed up the leaves and I kind of sprinkled them around, because these were also thought for the future co-inhabitants, which are isopods. They're going to have cleanup crew. They're going to eat the leaves, and I'll talk about the isopods a little bit later, but also the leaves add a bit of stimulus and some good enrichment and just create a bit of texture and color into the terrarium. Now I needed to find some branches. I needed to add some height into the terrarium because tree frogs are arboreal in nature. I mean, these guys do, I guess, hang around plants close to bodies of water. They are found on the ground, but they also like to climb. They like to be up nice and high in the canopies of small shrubs. So they are arboreal in nature. So I needed to find some branches. I needed to add some height, like I said, and trying to find different thicknesses, try to find suitable branches that I could break off with some cool coloring. Now I found this cool piece. I thought it was perfect, especially with its colorations, right? I thought it added some awesome, I guess, colorations to the terrarium, as well as giving some height to the terrarium, which would be perfect for the frogs. Now, breaking it apart, skinning it, removing all the leaves is key, just so it's a simple stick. You're putting it in there, and this is another area where you want to play around. You want to wedge them in so they're nice and firm and strong, so they're not going to fall over. And basically, yeah, this is the, like I said, enjoyable part. I love the hardscape elements as well. You get to be creative. I needed a thicker piece, so I went and found a much thicker piece to go with the smaller piece. So we have two different thicknesses and two different sticks, so they have one each. There's only going to be two little guys going in here. Another great option for natural bark, things for them to hide under, is if you've got old logs around the house or old firewood, strip off some of the bark. It's perfect. It adds a lot of cool texture. It looks super cool, and it's perfect for them to hide under and also sit on top, right? It just adds a lot of natural stimulus. It makes the terrarium look super natural, and as you can see, it's coming up shortly what the final solution looks like. Alright, so this is the final solution, and I'm super proud of it. I think it looks amazing from a bird's eye view. It's super cool. It's got all the right elements, lots of green, lots of vegetation, some moss, some low plants. There's a fern in there that will grow quite tall. There's some grass in there that will grow quite tall. The clover will get to a good height once it grows out. And they've got their bark, they've got their leaves, they've got two sticks, they've got a nice dish of water. So they've got everything they need for two tiny micro-sized tree frogs, whistling tree frogs. As I mentioned, super cool, awesome animals. Love these guys. Get them in. Alright, now the cleanup crew. Let's get the slaters, the isopods, roly-polies, whatever when you call them, into the terrarium. Now, I actually culture these guys, but I also do collect them from the wild. Once again, controversial, but I've been doing it for years and I've never had an issue. I understand the risks, and as long as it's a pesticide-free garden, you are probably generally okay. Now, I'm going to get these guys in. The idea of these guys is they're going to be like a little husbandry partner where they're going to look after the terrarium. They're going to eat all the dead leaves, eat all the dead vegetation, and as well, they might become food at some stage, which is also fantastic. I found whistling tree frogs love these guys. They're a great option in winter when there's not many wild flies or moths around. But these guys, here they are, the stars of the show, whistling tree frogs. Super cool colorations. I love their light browns, their grays, their beiges. In the light, they look super, super creamy in color, but really, really small, really, really tiny. As you can see, let's see them for some scale with my finger and the terrarium. Alright, I've got both the little guys in. Now, you see them chilling by their pool. Obviously, it's a nice day and a cold winter's day, but it's nice out there, and these guys will love this little terrarium. Once it grows a bit more, they've got all the elements they need. They have humidity, they have water, they have leaves, they've got bark, they've got little branches they can climb up. I'll give them a good feed after this, but as you can see, you don't often see them in the water. You'll see them maybe jump in, have a little soak, and then they'll jump out, but they're not in there often. But it's there in case they need it, right? In case it gets a little bit too dry, or maybe they want to have a little dip. But as you can see, guys, these are whistling tree frogs. The only, I guess, micro tree frog we have in New Zealand. The other two we have are golden southern golden bell and the southern bell, also from Australia. And then we have our native species, which are super amazing animals. Now, I made this terrarium for free because I'm experienced in making these terrariums and having these little guys thrive in these scenarios until they get bigger, and then they'll go into a much larger environment. Now, obviously for beginners, I would still recommend you get an Exoterra or an habitat or something built specifically for reptiles and amphibians. But when you become a bit more experienced over time, then you can kind of start being more creative and creating these microclimates and different ecosystems. But I just want you guys to enjoy these animals for how amazing they are, and we're very fortunate to have these guys in New Zealand. They're super cool animals. Here I am trying to see if this guy will catch the isopod right next to him, but I don't think he's overly interested right now, maybe later on. Now this guy spotted something in the water, and I'm not too sure what it is, but he jumped in and he was quite keen. I don't think it was a bug, but it caught his attention. And here he is looking super cute, going for a little dip. I see some leaf litter in there, but that's okay. I'll clean up and get it out of there. But sometimes after some time, you just have to get used to that. It's going to get dirty. As long as you clean the dish out once every couple of days or whenever it's looking dirty, then generally it's okay. Now, as you can see, classic swimming frog stance. These guys do jump in the water from time to time. They'll soak for a bit and then they'll move on. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Stay tuned for the next one, plenty more to come.